All right, so let's get into Season 1, Episode 4, King of the Narrow Sea,
House of the Dragon. Let's do it. So, I'll let you take the lead on this.
Oh, I get to go first this week? Were you
kidding.
embarrassed?
I'm gonna do
it.
Okay. Nope. So, overall, it's my favorite episode so far.
Awesome.
I like it more than Season 3, and this doesn't really have any... There's no action in this, is there? I mean, maybe... I think there's one scene in the beginning.
Yeah.
And, maybe throughout, but I enjoy the dialogue. I think Viserys may be my favorite character because I enjoy the fact that he's simply a king and a dad and a husband that's just trying to do what's right.
I'm very happy with how they've characterized him too, and just really, he went from kind of being what seemed like a possibly weaker, non-confrontational but loving father, and whatever the reasoning for it. I mean, we can speculate as to why, potentially over the last 5-ish years that the plot has taken place in so far. Maybe it has something to do with just he's starting to get fed up with certain things, and he's having to be a little stronger in that role now, and he can see certain things potentially falling apart. And then his sickness and his illness and having to deal with all of that he's not taking it anymore from people, because he has a couple excellent moments with characters.
Oh, he does.
In this. I think he is, especially in this episode, the strongest character in the episode, though Matt Smith is right on his heels, man. He oozes every time he's on screen. He
really does.
It's so,
he captures the moment.
Yeah, he does. I can't. It's just, I'm so excited to talk about a character that's really good. Multiple characters, but you know what I mean?
It's subtle things. He doesn't have to say, I am irritated right now, right?
Yes.
And to be that on the nose. You see that he's irritated or regretful or
smug. His smugness.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. Even just little actions that he does. We'll get into the first scene that they show him in the episode when he comes down on the dragon over the boat. Just things like that where they just give you these little moments of his character. And then how conflicted he potentially is as a character, because he's not... I wasn't sure at first the direction they were going with him, because they do the whole thing where his dragon literally looks like a demon, and he's really violent, and he seems to not be very caring for certain groups of people, and you're like, well, he is a really bad dude. But then you get moments with him where he obviously cares about Rhaenyra, he cares about his brother.
Maybe he cares about Rhaenyra.
He definitely cares
way.
about Rhaenyra maybe a little too much.
Yeah,
but of course we knew
does.
Yeah, we knew some of that stuff was
her too
gonna come up. Which is some of the best development I think for her as well, because we really get to see that transition of her kind of being the princess.
But she's not altruistic.
Exactly. And not that she necessarily was before, but this is really this episode's really that turning point for her, where we're starting to see that she's got that darker side to her, that she's being influenced by things that would not be that will carry over. They will carry over for later episodes for sure. Yeah, man, I don't know where this one stands. I feel like at this point I'm gonna have to see the entire season to kind of figure out for myself which episodes ended up being the strongest for me.
Yeah, they better bring it home.
I know, dude. I'm still nervous.
I'm still not recommending it.
Yeah, I'm still nervous about that transition.
I got a buddy that's not even watching it at all until the series is done.
I don't blame him.
Because of Game of Thrones.
I don't blame him. I don't blame anyone who's either I'm not watching it till the season's over, or until they have, because I think it's only supposed to be 3 seasons. I will miss Rhaenyra's actress when she's gone. I think she's great. Yeah. I think she plays the role perfectly. I think even Alicent, who isn't as strong of a character, but it's on purpose. She is the innocent, kind of not necessarily altruistic, but at least for now, the role that she's playing and the character that she is, she's kind of gullible maybe, and she believes that everyone has the best intentions and it's going to hurt her down the line.
Yeah.
And
what was the time jump in this episode?
Dude, I don't know. I don't know if they actually mentioned it. It had to have been...
I can't tell.
I want to say...
I couldn't tell. I don't know if they
roughly another half a year.
It
was... So we were wrong in the previous episode, too. It was actually a slightly longer time jump.
Okay.
Because Alicent was pregnant, and then we were at the second birthday, so it was closer to about a 3-year jump than it was a 2-year jump.
Yeah, and so I guess I know from when Daemon left to go fight Mr. Krabs to when he returns here, it's a 4-year jump since the last time he saw Rhaenyra.
Right, which would have been episode 1.
So I guess this has to be.
We could just round it to 5. I think is a
6 month to a year jump.
Yeah.
From 3 to 4.
Because I think it's roughly. I think it's roughly 5 years. Because it's like 4 to 5 years. Because I think Rhaenyra and Alicent are supposed to be around 18 at this point.
Yeah.
Because that's roughly the age of the actresses.
And we get we get a message in here, of kind of pointing out, from the beginning, in which we've seen from episode 1 forward, is, why is it this way for women and not for men? Well, men can sleep around and have as many, go through as many women as they want to, but a woman can't. So it's dealing with that from, medieval time period, which what George R.R. Martin was interested in, those themes.
And I like that. I'm completely fine with it. I understand that it could be taken as sort of like the modernization of those times. But the thing is that Rhaenyra is the only character for the most part in the show, at least so far, that's really thinking that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not as if it's an interesting thing to look at. You have a character who saw what happened to her mother, right? Mm-hmm. So there's reasons for it. She saw what happened to her mother. She doesn't want the same thing. Yep. She's probably seen to Alicent is probably another good example, because when she has that conversation with Alicent later on in the episode, you can kind of see how Alicent's like, crap, she might be kind of right about that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a queen, but I'm really just here to stay in the tower and make heirs for the king.
Yep. But then you get that scene with Daemon and kind of him taking her to see the city and what the populace thinks of her.
Yeah. So let's talk about this. So we open up with her looking for a husband, essentially. Mm-hmm. We find out that this is something that Viserys. The names, man, they still kill me sometimes. That Viserys and Alicent have kind of set up. And I really like this because you get to see a lot. Whoops. You get to see a lot of the how annoyed she is by a lot of this. Mm-hmm. But you also get this great moment of the contrast between, like, oh, here's this really old guy who's trying to get her hand, and then this kid, essentially, which is the same problem that they've kind of been having, where it's like, oh, there's all these great solutions to our problems and the perfect matches, but it's weird. Because it's like, I'm an adult and you want me to marry like a 13-year-old. Yeah. You're promising me to a kid.
You go from a really old guy to a kid.
Yeah. And here he is right here. I cannot remember this kid's name, but he's from like a strong house with ties to like the First Men, which you hear a lot in the show.
Blackwood House is the name of it.
And one, I think, honestly, is a great little opening of the episode too, because there's another guy who's like a little older, who's heckling, mm-hmm. and they get in a fight, and he ends up killing this guy. He ends up killing the guy. Honestly, it was kind of something that was a little unexpected. I mean, it's Game of Thrones, of course, but it was something where I was like, oh, someone will break him up, and then he ends up like stabbing the kid in the chest and killing him.
No, the kid ended up stabbing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He stabs him in the chest. And
got it backwards.
And then
I wasn't expecting that either. And I was like, with that, okay, I'll take it. I'll let it slide.
Yeah. Well,
because I think the adult guy, he just had like a little dagger.
Yeah, he had like some sort of like, it looked like some sort of needle type dagger.
Yeah.
And I thought it was interesting. I know I've heard some people complain about it because they're like, how could they just let that happen? But just to argue it a little bit, I think that what they're trying to set up is how much like the buildup of pressure between all these houses, and in the same way they were trying to do that in the first episode with the tournament and how it got really bloody. You're just seeing they're just building a little bit more up that there's a lot of dissatisfaction among these different groups of people. Yeah,
in subtle ways.
Yeah, so Rhaenyra's like, all right, we're getting out of here, and then you get is it
Sir Criston Cole.
Criston Cole. I always want to call him Christian. He's like, he's getting her out of there, and he's like, hey, don't look.
Yeah.
Which is really funny, and I like that moment too, because I don't think he still understands like that she is not that innocent, right?
Yeah.
He still sees her as like the princess,
right.
And I'm curious, because it doesn't really happen in this episode, but I'm curious going down in like more episodes to come if like his opinion of her is going to change. Like there's just going to be like, and we'll talk about what happens between the two of them later, but if there's going to be something at a point where like they come to a difference that splits them apart, because
they build up the romance between them, and then they have to split.
Yep, because she's not who he thought she was.
Yeah. Then you get the scene with Damon flying across the boat, and she hits her head on the side because it rocks it.
And I love this scene because, for one, it shows just kind of how much of a jerk Damon can be. So here's the dragon. It like hits the boat right here. And she's like super into it.
Yep.
And I think it's funny because this is somewhat, you hear this a lot, at least in on like social media and stuff in different circles, about like the toxic guy, but it's the guy that all the girls like.
Yep.
And that's exactly what I was thinking of in this
right
this specific
here,
instance.
I was too.
Because you see it a little bit later on too, but she's like giving him looks, and she clearly has. She's always like cared for him, but there seems to be a bit of a transition now into something more romantic, which happens about halfway through the episode. So yeah, she gets she rushes into court.
Damon arrives,
and this is what I was talking about how smug he is. I love it.
You think he's going to go down this route of confrontation? But he's like, they're calling me the king of the narrow seas and stuff like that. And then he said, but there's only one true king, your grace, and that's you. And I'll offer this to you along with blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Right. And it's just a good transition from the last episode. We see him beat the messenger with his helmet to this.
He like gives over the crown,
the sword.
Yeah. Like it's some sort of like hammer type thing. It looked like.
Yeah.
And he, he's playing the game. He knows, and as far as we can still
politicking.
Tell, he still cares about his brother and his family. Despite
unless there's some kind of change that happens.
Yeah, he has a lot of you could say he's got a lot of demons, I guess, if you want to put that as a bit of a character.
Bit on the nose.
It's a little bit, yeah. I mean,
Damon, he has demons.
The show's clearly not perfect in certain aspects. Like his name's Damon, his dragon looks like a demon. You know? He's troubled. He's got a lot of demons.
Yeah,
little on the nose for sure. So we start kind of getting those moments where Rhaenyra is starting to do her whole like thing where she clearly
enjoys his antagonistic side.
Yeah. There's something that she finds interesting about that, and he's just not having like any. This is one of those moments in the show where he's doing really great, where he's not having it with her anymore.
No, Allison says right here, we got new drapes, man. Should I take you and Damon to see them? Damon hasn't seen the new tapestries. That's what it was.
Tapestries.
And Sarah's like, I don't think he gives a flying piece of crap about the tapestries.
Yeah, he doesn't care about the tapestries. And I like.
It's totally true too.
And what's so good about the show, as we've talked about, is that all four of the characters, you're getting development with them, and they're not all talking. There are there are looks given. There's a shot. Let me see if I can find it. Allison, in particular, has a moment in there where she sees how Viserys is treating Rhaenyra, and you can tell that she still cares about.
That's a perfect
Rhaenyra.
shot of her, by the way.
It's a little rough. Sorry, guys. I don't have. Yeah, I had to change the way that we were doing this one. Usually, I have it in a program where I can really like run through the frames, but my computer acted up this week, so it is what it is. But yeah, so she still cares about her. She comes over to like comfort her after the situation because, and this is also where I believe Rhaenyra talks about how she doesn't even want kids.
Yeah,
like she doesn't want that normal queenly life, and she doesn't want to just be essentially the way that the heirs are being made. And I like it because you get a little bit of that like yin and yang between the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like
And you see with Alicent where she's just done her duty and how more miserable she's becoming.
Yeah.
And how lonely she is as well. She doesn't feel like she has any friends, and it's just really slow but good character development. And it's not all just done with words. It's how she's looking from scene to scene.
And it seems like a natural conversation that the two of them would have.
Yep.
That it's fine for her to be like, to be honest, I'm lonely. Like, I don't feel like I have friends anymore. It seems like a conversation you would have with someone who's one of your oldest friends. Even though there's been conflict between the two of them, it's showing how much she still cares about Rhaenyra and vice versa. For now.
Yeah.
I'm really curious what's going to go down between the two of them.
I am too.
It's one of those moments that I'm really waiting for as far as like, where's everybody going to kind of land? Because we know this is building up to a Targaryen civil war. That's kind of the point of the story.
Clear cut. Because Mr. Crab's restaurant has closed.
Yeah.
The Krusty Krab has closed. Then you get this good interaction between her and Daemon.
So good.
And again, like, the dialogue is great, but there's so much more communicated apart from the dialogue as well.
Yeah, she's trying to push him to admit, but also to see if like she had something to do with him returning.
Yeah.
That this wasn't just about the king.
Yeah.
Coming back and to get the praise and the recognition and to be like, to do his politicking, if you will.
Yeah.
That there might be more going on. So yeah, I really like it. I think they're both doing like top-notch acting here. I think that because they're talking in forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think this is supposed to be like the language of Old Valeria.
Yeah. Valerian or something like that.
Yeah. It sounds great.
Yeah.
Very well done. And it's little details, man, like little things to appreciate about a show like this. So yeah, that's most of what goes on in that scene. And then I'm gonna have to we'll have to find a spot and then just talk about a big chunk of this, and then I'll
go forward to the end.
Yeah. Rhaenyra goes back to her room, and
she finds a bag, and then it has a note, and it's from Daemon, and it said, "Hey, meet me here in the secret corridor that you don't know about behind your bed," or wherever. And she goes dressed like a boy, and then he takes her to see the city, and then that's when she gets to experience life outside of the Red Keep or whatever. And then she's also been able to see what the citizens think about her, which they want Aegon and not her.
Yeah, it's
because of her gender.
I don't know how clear it is.
Yeah.
But yeah,
a little bit of both.
You get a distinction that she's not exactly loved.
Yes.
And the reasoning for that you could kind of speculate on, and it probably has a lot to do specifically with the fact that she would just be a queen.
Yep. Somewhat with her gender, somewhat with how she acts, because they mock her prissiness, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad way of putting it.
And then Daemon leads her to a brothel where they engage in some activities that's not unbecoming. That's not good. Some immoral activities.
Yes,
in between.
I think it does. So
it juxtaposes with Alicent engaging in her marital activities with the king, right?
And she's clearly completely disinterested in it. She knows at this point it's just to fulfill him. Potentially more heirs. I don't know how much that plays into it at this point, because Aegon exists. As much as it is, she basically is there to be comfort for him, and it's gotten to a place in their relationship pretty quickly where there's not a close connection with them anymore.
Yeah. There's distance between them.
Yep. And I think it works. I mean, man, I'll tell you one thing. They do a fantastic job of using shadows to cover up the naughty bits of a lot of people in that brothel.
I wasn't. That's a good thing of having a wife is I just turn my head in these scenes and then she tells me when I can look.
When that stuff happens, because the first episode was kind of like that too. I was like, man, I'm gonna have to do some I'm gonna have to cut some major chunks out of this for YouTube. So I
almost wish they could do like a clean version where they keep the dialogue, but the picture becomes pixelated.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, something that. I mean, it's HBO.
It'd be nice.
I know. One of the things I love is that Gary, he's like convinced that there's somebody at HBO who they're like reading through a scene and they're like, oh, he's taken to her brothel. Are there boobs? There should be if there are not here.
Yeah, right. We need to get some butt cheeks in there.
Yeah,
and we need to show more awkward scenes. I don't understand the necessity of it on screen. I don't agree with it, but
one of the things that I think is really there is a necessity to show for what they're trying to accomplish with Daemon and Rhaenyra. Mm-hmm. There's a necessity to show that interaction and how he goes right up to the line with her, and everything that happens after with Chris, right? No, Sir Cole.
Christian Cole.
Yeah.
Or Kristen Cole.
Kristen, God.
Yeah. You got me saying it now.
I know. My bad, guys. And because you get all of these different interactions with the different characters, and again, talking about how Daemon, it's like there are certain things that he clearly wants, but then there is also that bit of conscience still in him that he cares about his family.
Ever so slightly.
Yeah, there's, because what ends up happening in that entire situation is that like she wants to go through with it, and then he's the one that's like, no, this is a bad idea for whatever. And that's the thing is we don't know what came over him.
Yeah,
we are not given a specific reason as to why he backs away from the situation, the incestual situation. Yeah. And she doesn't, which is another moment of showing how like her personality and all of the things that she's in this like this part of the episode, you get to see that like that kind of change in her, or like something that maybe she wasn't completely aware of. It's like, all right, something's changing with her. Like we're starting to see her go from being this sort of like this image of the perfect princess to being something a little bit more. And we got a little bit of that in the last episode too, when she kills the boar. That there's these certain instincts in her that are starting to kind of manifest themselves over the course of the show.
Yep. And she leaves Daemon and goes right to Sir Christian Cole, kind of using him to, potentially get over
try to be
Daemon,
so
but because they have, I would just go like to the end, or not the end, but go 3/4 of the way.
We're good.
Oh, you good?
Yeah,
we're past it now.
Well, we're past most. We're past most of it.
I'll
hit this spot next. I'm just trying to figure out. This is okay too.
Not there. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. We're good.
So they had built up kind of, you see this tension between them, this kind of, sparse of romance, so to say, this interest, you could call it. And so it's not necessarily implausible that she wouldn't go to him and that there isn't, more of a connection there. But you could definitely tell that she moves from Daemon to him pretty fast.
Yeah. And someone can tell me if I'm wrong, and because this is my thought the whole time this is going on. I'm pretty sure the Kingsguard takes a celibacy oath.
I was wondering what the deal with Kingsguard.
Yeah, I had that confirmed, but if anybody who's listening to this wants to,
because we're not familiar with the lore.
That, I just can't remember. I have not paid that much attention to Game of Thrones, especially since the end of season 8. So there's a lot of stuff that the details of certain things that I don't remember. But I'm pretty sure that's the case, which adds another layer onto this of like, that's the kind of thing that could get him killed. Like his decision here to sleep with Rhaenyra potentially could get him killed. And then you also know that she's in a situation of like, she just doesn't care. We've seen her say this. So everything she's doing is well within her character, where she doesn't really care about her station. She doesn't really care that she's the princess. Everything is sort of just like doing what she wants at this point. Like she's kind of giving over to those emotions and being like, whatever, like, so yeah, I mean, it makes sense that this happened. It's gonna be, go ahead.
The Kingsguard members are forbidden of getting married, but there's no mention in the novels, at least,
celibacy,
that they are required to take a vow of celibacy.
So
Due to their status, however, they are expected to act respectfully, namely to refrain from inexplicit behavior.
And probably
kind of like at the brothel,
And probably sleeping with the princess is not a good thing.
Yeah, probably not. The king probably wouldn't be happy with that.
Yeah, probably not. Okay, no, that's good to know.
Yeah.
So yeah, all of this goes down. They have one more interaction the next morning, and he's like being super awkward, and so it's an interesting thing because I think she like genuinely has feelings for him. Like that's the impression.
I agree.
That's the impression that I got from the way she was acting towards him, and he's kind of like, we you can't do this. Like this could be really bad for me. like please stop.
Oh yeah. The king wouldn't be happy because we know that he gets upset when he finds out about
Daemon.
Daemon.
Yep. So Alicent.
Confronts her.
At earlier on, we had a scene where, so when Rhaenyra is leaving the brothel, a boy notices it and leaves, which was the indication that someone's been spying on her. We find out it was Otto, and that the White Worm, who we haven't seen since episode 2, because when she leaves Dragonstone, she's essentially selling information to people. It doesn't seem like she's specifically working for anyone. At least we're not given indication of that yet. But we do get to see that happen, and then Otto confronts Viserys about Rhaenyra in that situation, and that is an awesome moment in the show.
That was a great scene because you kind of see that Viserys is wise to what's going on.
Yeah, and not
at least
only,
to some extent.
Yeah, and he knows he knows how to play the game. We get a little bit of that because it's and you also get to see that it's starting to show that it's like he knows that a lot of these people are just out for their own good, which we get in another scene, I think, after that, because Rhaenyra goes to talk. Rhaenyra and Viserys have a conversation about what the two of them need to do, and it's kind of about fulfilling their duty. Like hers is the princess and his is the king. But yeah, so that situation with Otto leads to this, where Alicent comes and confronts her about the situation. And as far as I know, at least this is the first time it stood out to me. This is like one of the first times that we see Rhaenyra like straight up lie to someone. Yes,
I think so. That change to protect herself and the lie and to manipulate to protect what's hers and get what she wants.
And Alicent goes for it because Alicent is very trusting.
Well, I mean, who wouldn't trust their oldest friend?
And that's the thing is she mentioned something. I don't remember what the exact line was when she's talking to the king. But she says something about like Rhaenyra's not one to essentially lie. Or tell untruths.
Daemon is known to be deceitful.
And whether that, it's like, I don't know if that was really like Rhaenyra's intent, but it plays on Alicent's innocence. And her trust of Rhaenyra that works out because the king, I think the king for the most part is like, that makes a lot of sense.
But then you get the scene later on with the Maestros where he gives her that tea, that abortion tea, to prevent anything. I'm just saying, like the king trusts her, but it's kind of like, well, just in case.
Yeah, it's a good sobering moment. But it has a lot to do. So they go through the thing.
And again, that just shows like how he knows the game that's being played.
Yeah, there's probably something there. It's kind of a just in case thing. And they've had the conversation before that of, hey, you have to do your like princessly duties. You're going to marry
Lord Coriolis' son.
Yes. And you're going to do it for duty. Whatever you do besides that he kind of is like, whatever you do other than that is not my problem. But you will do your duty in this situation. And she basically is like, well, you have to do yours too. And I think it kind of backfires on her a little bit because I think that conversation has a lot to do with why he gives her that. Because she's like taken aback by it. Because her father, she's always kind of been able, I wouldn't necessarily say to manipulate her father. I don't think early on that's really her intention.
Yeah.
It's more of like he has always had a soft spot for Rhaenyra. She's the only thing that he has left of his previous family. because his wife's dead and he didn't have any other children.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's always kind of used kid gloves on her. And this is that turning point for him where you're seeing that he's really not playing around with any of these people anymore.
Yeah, and then when he gives her the
here's that. This
tea,
is that scene when they were talking.
It takes you back to that. Okay, it reminds you he's not altruistic either. It shows that sliminess, that immoral, not sliminess, but you could say that immoral nature to him, right? To be like, hey, just in case you're pregnant, let's abort it, right?
Right. Yeah. It goes back to it's like, because he says to her in this scene, he's like, the truth doesn't matter. Like he's
perception matters.
Perception matters. So he said, and so no matter whether she's telling the truth or not, the perception of all of this going on has to be that you are a maiden, and we're going to make sure that that's the way it stays. And I think that giving her that tea, quote unquote tea, at the end of the episode is very much him putting his foot down to be like, this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't really matter, and it's that other statement to her that it's like, in this life, it doesn't really matter what you want.
Yeah.
It's like none of, and it's such an interesting.
There's reality, there's what you want, and then there's reality.
Yeah. And it's a really interesting, and then I want to talk about this Otto Hightower and him moment because I think this is really good. But it's a really interesting statement. And then one of the other things that you see, because the showrunners in particular were trying to kind of push this, well, Sapochnik was. I don't know so much about the other showrunner whose name slipped in my mind, but he's been on that like, there's like a massive like feminist agenda in the show, and everyone was like, oh boy, here it comes, like we're gonna see what this is. And in reality, that's not the case, because when you're watching the show, you understand that most of the characters in the show do not 100% have control over their own lives.
Yeah.
And the ones that do, like Daemon, for instance, who is kind of that free-spirited, it's that like libertine type thing where he's like, I'm doing whatever I want. Pretty sure I'm using that right. People hate him. His family finds him to be a bit of a nuisance, and they don't know how to give him like a proper position anywhere. He tends to railroad relationships with people. So there's all of these things that they're at least showing as this is what a character who is like Daemon, it's like what happens when you just think that you have like total freedom to do whatever you want.
Yep.
He's kind of the opposite. Like he's that foil for a lot of the rest of the cast who they're trying to play their roles. And then you have Rhaenyra, who's in this position of like, she sees what Daemon has and she wants a lot of that because she doesn't necessarily understand the consequences that comes with something like that. And I like it. I really like it. I think there's a lot of like great dynamics going on in the show. And
this scene between Viserys and Otto, maybe the best scene of the entire episode. Because Viserys, confronts him on playing the game with him.
Yep.
And being after himself to the extent that he would have his daughter spied on.
This is a very I feel like the audience is Viserys in this moment, and it's finally coming to light that everyone's been thinking that Otto has had different intentions, because it's like, okay, we knew he was kind of playing to get Alicent, the queen, to become the queen. That means that his grandchild will be on the throne, which means like his life would pretty much be set.
Yep.
And that's what he's been aiming for this whole time, and I imagine we haven't seen the end of that.
No, we probably haven't.
And that he will be pushing some of that
with Alicent.
Yes.
And we see that Viserys was aware of that with Alicent too.
Yeah, he definitely did. And I think I think you would mention this earlier on, like her dissatisfaction with everything that goes on makes it a little bit more clear to him that she probably was manipulated into the situation, which we knew, but like that was not something that he was aware of.
Yeah.
That it was Otto had specifically used her in a time of grief for when Viserys was in a time of grief to manipulate him. But it's also really interesting because I still think back to that conversation they had at the bonfire in the previous episode, and that there was a connection between the two of them. Like and there's one in this episode too where she's bathing him. There is a genuine she genuinely I think cares about him, but I think that she's starting to come to that realization that
she doesn't want to be his wife.
Yeah, there's an imbalance there. Like she doesn't want to just be this like baby maker, essentially.
Yep.
Yeah, it's interesting. Everybody's got they're complex, and I can appreciate that.
There's this you hit the nail on the head. There's this, she cares about him, but it may not be to the extent that, hey, I want to be the queen or I want to be his wife, right? Like that sense of like, I'm enjoying our marriage.
Yep. So, and then we have, this is essentially the final shot of the show. She's given the potion, and she's like, well, what's this? And he basically is like, well, it's a tea to deal with your ailments or like to any issues you might be having or whatever, to flush. She basically is like to flush out the potential problems.
Yep.
And you're just like, and it's what a great like ending point, because they just cut it there. Like they really want that moment to like sit. And I like that. I think it's great because you get a little bit more on Viserys, and then she's kind of understanding like, it's like, yeah, like you are not getting out of
this situation.
Like you don't have that kind of control that you thought that you did.
Yeah. Like
your father has caught on to your games and your trickery, and he's really trying to keep her in line.
Yep.
But yeah, man, I'm still enjoying the show.
Each episode seems to be getting better. I wouldn't have said that episode 2 was necessarily better than the first one, but they
were about even, I would think.
Yeah,
I'd probably put the first one ahead of the second one.
Yeah, I would too. But then 3 picked up from 1 and 2, and then 4 picked up from 3.
Yeah,
in my view.
Yeah, I still think I prefer 3, but I think it's because it's a really good balance of, you get a lot of the political intrigue, and then you also get the scene with Daemon going crazy, and doing like his whole thing, and it's just like that stuck with me. The more that the week went on after watching the episode and talking about it, but yeah, still satisfied with it. I'm trying real hard not to recommend it to people because it's one of those things where it's like, look, I'm liking it so far, but I don't trust that it's going to maintain it throughout this season or series. It just has to maintain the quality.
Yep.
If it stays in this range of being like a pretty good show,
it will be better.
Awesome. Yeah. And it's already, listen, at this point, it's already better than Rings of Power.
Oh, yeah.
It's already got these four solid episodes. Yeah. It's already got 4 solid episodes. The characters are great. I'm just worried because this was a big problem with the original show that, we know Viserys isn't going to last. That is what it's leading to that. We know that's the case. When that's going to happen, I don't know. I don't know when the time jump's going to happen. I thought it was going to happen about halfway through the season, but I'm starting to wonder if
it's going to be more so towards the end.
Yeah, if it's not going to be till like 6, 7, 8, somewhere in there that we see it. And I'm worried that, I get Daemon will probably stick around. And there's apparently a lot of characters that we still haven't been introduced to, so I'm curious about a lot of them and if how that's going to work. I am just worried that a lot of the characters that we've liked in the show, because I think, and in no particular order, I think that Daemon, Viserys, and Otto Hightower are probably my top 3. I really like the dynamics. I like the dynamics of those 3 characters and the way that they interact with everybody else in the show. Yeah. They seem to lift up the rest of the cast, in my opinion. And
it's hard. Those are. I say that's hard because I really like Rhaenyra.
I do too, but I think she's made better by
everyone else around her.
The other members of the cast, because I think that was somewhat of the same thing that was going on in the original series. Is that the older actors and the people who were more that they'd been in more things. They weren't kind of like
could carry everyone else.
Yeah, they were carrying a lot of the show, and it was helping with the other characters and was helping those those relationships. And as they slowly started to dwindle and were killed off throughout the series, and all you have left is like Jon Snow and
Daenerys.
And the rest of them, it was like for a lot of them, this was the thing that put them on the map. It's like some of their inability to act started to come through a little bit more, and it wasn't quite the same show that it once was. And so I'm still worried about that a little bit. I know that we're gonna, obviously we're losing Alicent and Rhaenyra's younger characters,
towards the end.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll just have to see. We'll have to see if it gets any better. But I'm excited for the rest. Yeah,
I'm looking forward to it.
I'm cautiously optimistic about the rest of the season is the best way to put it.
That's a great way to put it. I'm cautiously optimistic.
Cautiously optimistic, which a lot of people were about other things. This is the first time I've even been that close, but I've been enjoying it. I've really liked a lot of it. I think there were a few moments in this episode where the pacing was a little like, all right, y'all, like let's go.
Speed it up.
Yeah, just in a few places, but nothing major. But yeah, overall,
hardly any criticisms for this episode.
No, I'd have to go back on a full watch through again to really see if there was anything that that majorly stands out. But so far,
they're
so
kicking
good.
Rings of Powers, but
just, dude, it's not even even close. It's not even a competition.
No, it's not.
And it's unfortunate because I think a lot of people were still so burned. Now, if this stays good, right? If the season stays good. A lot of people are so burned by OG Game of Thrones that I just think a lot of people just aren't willing to give this a chance.
Yep.
And I don't blame them because this could end up going down the same path, but it seems like they're aware.
Yep.
And they're trying really hard because, Sapochnik's out. They got a new guy, the other guy coming in who was more involved in
OG
early seasons.
like first few seasons. Yep.
So maybe they know, and maybe not having D&D there anymore as the showrunners and trying to rush through a lot of things is going to help with this because they can they're like, I guess 3 seasons, we're going to tell the story we need to tell, and we're going to try to keep it as tight as possible. Maybe that is going to play a lot into it. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
Still worried about where it's headed to some degree, but I don't know. They'll do themselves a disservice if they end up getting rid of all of these like high, like top tier actors. Before the season is over, which is it's a worry. It's a worry that I have. A lot of them aren't going to make it out of the season, and then it's going to be like, well, what's going to keep me here moving forward? You know what I mean?